It's so lovely to be here with you, user community. This is our very first live session for 2023. I hope you had an amazing break. I hope you had a safe entry into the new year. And we're certainly, as Digital Earth Africa, looking forward to bringing you not only these live sessions, but all the engagement that we will be having across our different platforms. We host these sessions every week in English, as well as in French. We alternate between the two every week. So today's session is going to be in English, and next Wednesday, la mercredi prochain, c'est une session en français every alternate week. So the session next week will be in French. I'm very excited to be introducing today's facilitator. But before I do, today we're covering the topic of coastline monitoring. Late in 2022, Digital Earth Africa, in partnership with CSE Senegal, launched a coastline service to monitor coasts across the African coastline. And now we're going to be bringing that session to you again, this time with a different facilitator. His name is Dr. Kenneth Mubia. He is the Capacity Development Lead right here at Digital Earth Africa, a fellow colleague. Yes, he's going to be facilitating today's session. And so, Dr. Mubia, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Maud. Greetings, everyone, from where you're calling from. I'm calling from Kenya, just the short name Ken as well. I've been with the program a few years, and the program has really grown based on the demands from stakeholders from different countries. And one of these today is the stakeholder on the engagements that have been done as well on Coastline, thanking our partners from Centre Civil Ecology in Senegal, Dakar, whom we had privileged to visit a few years ago. And they've been very instrumental in their service, as well as making an opportunity for us to have a coastline service for the continent. And I'll do a short presentation here and also allow us to look at the materials and also possibly a short quiz to see what we're able to remember from this presentation. So thank you, everybody. From this end is that coastlines are quite useful. And today's topic is in English, and with the support of my colleague, Joseph Tushimiri, he'll present next week the same topic in French, just confirming that, Joseph, that is the story. Thank you, Joseph. So the mission of the Digital Africa is to provide these services from agriculture, water, land degradation, urbanization, and coastal erosion to make sure that we're able to empower governments, scientists, academia, and everybody, leaving no one behind. Today's topic is quite useful, that one of the coastline service, which from Digital Earth Africa, providing the solution using data from open satellites, Landsat at 30 meters and Sentinel-2 10 meters, having this data over 30 years from the Landsat, and the Sentinel just over 5-10 years is quite useful. And this is made possible through the Open Data Cube technology and hosted by our partners, Amazon Web Service in Cape Town, South Africa. And this is a continental scale product. And we are working as well on creating the tools which are already available, some notebooks. I'll be able to show you the different interfaces. And soon we'll be able to develop content in terms of training in our learning platform, which is free for everybody to access. The context is that over the countries that we have touched by the coast, these are 38 countries approximately. Some of them are actually prone to coastal erosion over the many years due to climate change. And this is a concern for our countries in terms of low economy and also vulnerable communities, the climate change. Even looking at Madagascar, surrounded by the coast, is quite useful to give the context. From the Digital Earth Africa side, we've developed a coastline service, and this service is accessible on the Digital Earth Africa map, as well on the analysis platform Sandbox. And you can see it covers all these countries which have been mentioned, and it gives you the context of seeing the changes over 10, 20 years, very useful. And we'll be able to see some examples of some of the countries. The coastline service is borrowed from other continents, especially from the Digital Earth Africa Australia, where they had the Australian Coastline Service as well. And this was done the same in Africa with the partners, Centre Sabili Ecologie and others, so that we can provide the same service to everybody. And this has been very useful in terms of making sure that all countries are covered, and we provide the service to everybody so that we don't leave anyone behind. Also from the other side is that this is the first continental SAR product, and it requires a lot of validation, which we've worked with the partners, collected several points, and we're able to see many changes from the year 2000 to now, covering more than 60,000 kilometers of the coast. And the platform is free in terms of access, seeing the hotspots and changes over time. And just from the quiz is that we could think about some of the countries in terms of coastline coverage, and you can see the top 10 countries in Africa. If your country is not listed here, don't worry. It's just among the 10 countries. There are actually 38 countries, and one of them, which is not mentioned, is Kenya, with a coastline of 538, quite small compared to other countries. So Madagascar is quite, as you can see, 4,828. And you can see that range from Somalia, South Africa, Mozambique, Egypt, Eritrea, Morocco, Libya, and Angola, and Namibia. So giving you the context, you can see from those 38 countries, at least some of these really rely on the coastline, like Madagascar, and it's quite useful to provide these data sets to everybody to actually see the trend. So the objectives of this service is to help countries to be able to monitor their coastline in terms of erosion, also make opportunities prioritizing their development agenda in terms of coastal management plans, even to see how they can model the coastlines to respond to these extreme drivers of climate change, including also harm human development, and also see if there are opportunities to see like plant mangroves to see how we can improve these, which we've seen in Zanzibar in a story which will show towards the end. And appreciating the partners also who've joined us today, Lithong and Fatou Sané from CAC, Centre Sabili Ecologie in Dakar, Senegal, who've been very instrumental in terms of the validation. And we're looking at different countries as part of the West Africa Coastline Service program, which was covering a few countries, almost 10, and there were quite interesting results observed. And they'll be able to mention more in the discussion session. And this service, you can be able to access it on the DE Africa map, just giving you a context. For example, you can see a coastline change in Namibia, one of those step countries I've mentioned about. Moving to other countries, you can see the context, like mangrove dynamics in Mozambique, quite affected over 10 years, quite useful for planning, and as well visualizing the context of how you can inform communities. Moving to the other side, you can see some parts in Nigeria on the coast, changes over 10, 20 years, quite rapid. And the objective is how we can work closely with you to access this data, of course, from the Digital Earth Africa platform. You can share this as a link on your QGIS or ArcGIS or as an API, and it's truly free for everybody to use and access. And the training as part of this workshop, you're able to access and see the service and how it works for your user community. And just to give you the context of how you can access it on the Digital Earth Africa map, I can just go to the DE Africa map on my side, which is the link I can put on the chat, just to give you an idea of how you can work, and also recognizing partners from different parts of the continent, especially those ones calling from coastal countries like Pierre from Madagascar, David Ongo from Kenya, Emmanuel from Kenya, Home Victoria, and also others who joined us today's live session. From the DE Africa map, which is a free service, you can click on the open and explore data. You go to the coastal and you're able to load the coastline service, and you can load it and you can see the context for the whole continent. And also on the DE Africa map, you can change the map settings so that you can see at least an image that you can relate in terms of countries on the background. You can zoom into some of the areas. And some of these hotspots I mentioned, like the coast of Nigeria, you can actually see a lot, especially around the Port Harcourt, Harcourt area. And also remember I was looking somewhere in Lekele Beach, looking at the rates, the colors you can see. This is somewhere where you really experience more than 5 meter change over time. And this, as you can see on the legend, is quite alarming in some areas, just moving from the coasts. So for this one now, like I've zoomed in here to the coast of Lagos, I can choose to share this with you just on the map as a map service. Let me just make sure we're in the right areas. So sometimes maps load very fast. Sometimes depends on the internet connectivity. So I can just click to some random area or just an example, and I can share this story with you as a link on the chat, or even you can put it on the WhatsApp to share with other user community what you've seen, or if you just discovered something from this particular topic. Then you can also change the backgrounds as often as possible so that you can see the OpenStreetMap background. Gives you at least an idea whenever you want to move from different sections or areas. And we can even go to Douala, Cameroon, just to respond to everybody who's connected. And you can see how the scenario is around there. And when you zoom in, you can just have a click some areas. And also remember around Petit Toubé, you can also change the map background so that you can share it with somebody to have an idea of what is happening around Cameroon. So I'll put the link there for partners from Cameroon. Also recognizing Rodrigo Lele from Cameroon, but living in Burkina for his research. Then I go to Namibia, first of Namibia, just as an example, no particular preference, just highlighting some areas, some hotspot areas around the desert. This has been of 5 meters of change. You can see over time, and you can also zoom in more and actually see the service from different years and advise the communities as much as possible. So this one is something I can also do. And also from the other side, I can just start creating a small story as well using my the Africa map. You can just click on a story, and I was doing something on the coastline, and now I can capture Namibia just as an example and save it. Then I can capture another scene as well, or even going back to where I was. So we can just do a small recap of what we've covered. I can capture the code around Boni in Nigeria, just capture the screen. So just comparing some coastlines using this Africa map. And I can just move very fast to Mozambique, just as an example of some of the areas I've highlighted, or even best coast of Madagascar, around the Tananarivo. I have to be very careful first. Yes, around the coast. So you can just capture a place and say Madagascar. So this is just an example of a small story that you can do and develop and create more stories. And then I can just share it on the chat that you can actually use to study more in case you need to follow up, or just, this is just for learning purposes of what you can do with the Africa maps. Also, apart from the coastline service, you can move to any part. I mentioned about Egypt. You can see the coast of Egypt in the north. You can also look at Morocco, the north. So all these datasets are available thanks to our partners, and also, of course, Senegal and Dakar, coast of Dakar, which, as you can see, the changes have been seen over time. This is something we've actually seen. And also moving to the coast of south, similar, and also with Gambia. The story is big, and imagine all this data is free for us to use and for the user community. So those were the few examples that I shared with you, and some of the links, as you can see, some of the areas, some hotspots, Mozambique, Namibia, and also moving into the coast of Namibia, as I showed. And now we can move to the sandbox just for your intervention. And the sandbox is a free analysis platform from the Africa, which you're able to register with your email for free, and you're able to access some of the data sets. And when you log in on your sandbox, you see different folders, and I wish to draw you to the Coastline notebook. So this particular notebook has been prepackaged for you. Yours is just to run it and just change the coordinates of your area. And for this particular demonstration, I'll just go to the coast of Cameroon, so that at least we're able to see different results. And also, if you need, also you can do some comparison from different areas and around Douala, so to Bebe. So around here, I can just click on the coordinates in the finder for the area around that extent, and I take it to the on my side, so that we can actually see what will actually happen when I run this as an example. And so that will be an example, but what is currently loaded is an example for the coast of Mombasa, Kenya. Just to give you the context, the D Africa is able to load the data from, it's a package itself, and we have different extents for different times from 2000 that time, and you can move into an area which is actually zoomed into in terms of the coordinates. So in this particular example, I'll just show you this particular example for this one. Then I'll run it for the coast of Cameroon, and you'll be able to see similar results as what we have. So very quickly, this is the example, and what I'll do, I'll just go to kernel and I'll restart and run all the cells, and our work here is just to import the packages which are already run, and change the extents of the area as much as we want. And so you remember I was looking at the extent for coasts in Douala, and it's able to load the data for Cameroon, and you're able to see some preliminary areas around Petobe. And this is real time as well. You can change for any area that you want, and you see the coastline in terms of rate of change is quite big, over almost 3 meters, quite alarming as well. And you can still move in, and last but not least, there's a small interaction that we have that you can actually generate the extent for this particular area and clip it for a file that you will need to export. So very quickly, we were at the coast, and you can change the background in case it's not very clear. You can use the OpenStreetMap background, and I was in the Petit Tobe. It was this particular area. And what I can do is that I can run a line like in English, transect. That is the whole idea of this tool. And you can extract that particular coastline for your other purpose. You can choose to import it as a figure or a CSV file, and you can extract it. So this first I had to do finish, then I'll generate the area. So this is just some examples, and I'll be able to generate the transect of the area in terms of the distance, and it shows me the changes over time, distances, and the trends, either good or bad. So it seems it's just a service for now. And I was looking at another notebook area for the coast of Mozambique around Medzo, and I was able to get some also interesting results in terms of high rates of change. And also with our geography, it's always good to, when you move in, you'll be able to see the area that you're working on. And of course, you are the experts in the different areas that you're working. And you can also do the same for Durban or for anywhere. It's just changing the extent and finally showing the rate of change for that particular area in the particular region. It was around Mezzo area, and of course the pronunciation is in Portuguese. And you can see the high rates. This is very typical for such areas with the deltas and all that. And you can also do the extraction of the same. And finally, but not least, those are some of the examples that I had in mind. So this was the coast of Mombasa, coast of Dakar. The other one is the coast of Mezzo, Mozambique. And another one was around Lekki, Lagos. And also, we had the opportunity to do the same working with our partners for Zanzibar, where they used some of these tools to see how planting mangroves helps in terms of preventing coastline erosion. And that was a very good story that was published in a documentary with Amazon Web Service. And put the link to the story there. And also going back to the link that I had generated, and you can see the coastline will affect countries differently in terms of the extent. And actually the ranking is from 1 to 38 countries, and all the countries at a different level. And also acknowledgements to our partners, their support, Regional Center for Mapping, CSA Senegal, and others who've joined us. And of course, the government of Australia. And finally, here are our contacts in terms of interventions and what you'd like to see. You can connect us and write to us. And also finally, recognizing the video we developed with our partner Senegal, which I'll just play for 1 or 2 minutes, just for your intervention.
Coasts are an important part of the land on which we live. In order to protect these special areas, we must understand how they are being impacted by weather, the changing climate, and the expanding human population. Coastlines are fragile. They ebb and flow with each weather event. They are the first line of defense in a storm. They are the first to experience the rising sea levels. With a rapidly changing climate and growing populations, we must protect the fragile and vital ecosystems of the coastlines in Africa. Now we have the tools to help us understand and protect our coast. Introducing Coastlines, a new service from Digital Earth Africa.
L'outil Digital Earth Africa a été développé par Géosciences Australia en rapport avec le centre de psychologie. C'est un outil qui permet de suivre différents indicateurs par rapport au risque côtier, par exemple, dans le domaine qui nous intéresse. Et l'intérêt, c'est que ces images Landsat de moyenne résolution sont facilement accessibles, sont gratuites, alors que les images d'autorisation sont chères et pas forcément accessibles. Et nous, dans le cadre du travail que nous voulons faire donc à l'échelle régionale, à long terme, il est beaucoup plus avantageux de pouvoir accéder à des images gratuites pour pouvoir pratiquer ce suivi d'indicateurs à long terme.
Through the use of satellite imagery and data, the Coastlines Monitoring Service allows users to map the location of the African coastline and identify patterns of coastal change. Using satellite imagery, Digital Earth Africa has created a full continental data set. By capturing where the land meets the sea, the Coastline Service visualizes and provides the rate of coastline change over time. Using the Coastline Service, we can see how beaches, mangroves, river mouths, and the tidal flats have grown and eroded over time. Digital Earth Africa's Coastline Service takes the lead from world-leading methods developed by the Digital Earth Australia team. In collaboration with implementing partners, the methods developed have been tested and validated through a truly global collaboration. With data freely available and updated regularly as it continues to be acquired, the service allows current rates of coastal change to be compared with that observed in previous years or decades, giving us the best holistic picture of the African coastlines we've ever had. Although still in the early stages, the Coastlines Monitoring Service is already having an impact.
On peut d'ores et déjà se projeter sur les perspectives d'usage. Donc, la première idée qui vient à l'esprit, c'est d'utiliser l'outil pour le suivi du trait de côte au niveau de 3 échelles, l'échelle régionale, l'échelle nationale ou bien l'échelle locale. Donc, l'autre idée qui vient à l'esprit, c'est de pouvoir utiliser l'outil Digital Earth Africa Coastline dans le cadre de l'Observatoire régional du littoral ouest africain pour le suivi de l'indicateur érosion et agression.
Le littoral ouest africain a quelques particularités, mais globalement, il y a également des spécificités qui sont partagées avec, par exemple, l'ensemble du littoral au niveau mondial. C'est une zone qui concentre beaucoup de personnes. 50% de la population urbaine est localisée au niveau du littoral. Il y a l'essentiel des activités économiques également est concentré au niveau de cet espace-là. Et sur le plan de la biodiversité, presque 50% du linéaire est composé de vasières à mangroves. Or, les mangroves, ce sont des zones de haute biodiversité qui regroupent beaucoup d'espèces végétales, halieutiques, etc.
Coastal erosion has both an economic and societal impact. By mitigating coastal erosion risk in 3 key sectors, Digital Earth Africa could inject some $460 million per year into Africa's economy and change the lives of around 270 million people. There is more we can do to help stem the tide and protect the special ecosystems in Africa. Through Digital Earth Africa Coastlines, we can plan for the future by unlocking the patterns of the past.
So thank you everybody for your attention, and I wish to welcome any questions that you might have. I'm also thanking you for joining us in today's live session. We'll have the next one, same on Coastline next week in French, so that we can be more empowered to use the Coastline service to help the continent. Over to you, Maud.
Thank you to you, Ken, for that very riveting discussion on coastline services. I certainly learned a lot, and I hope that you did too. Ken was sounding a bit soft, maybe it was on my side, but at this point, we're going to take any questions that you may have. I noticed in the chat box as we were all introducing ourselves, we have a lot of students amongst us today. We've got interns, we've got trainees. If you have a question, now would be a great.
So much for your question, and this is the products that we used. We used open data from Landsat, Sentinel-2, 10 meters, produced the coastlines, and from this particular example, you can see we have the changes over 20 years, given the context of Landsat 7 and 8, and even additionally 9. And once you click on the data itself, you can also be able to see more information about the data. You can access it as an API. I was trying to answer the other question from that particular colleague. You can also access it as a WMS service in your QGIS or ArcGIS. And we also have the partnership with Africa Geoportal with Esri, where also these data sets will be also part of their work. So we are here to empower the continent to access the service. And also you asked about the notebook. It's available as well on the Sandbox platform. And we also have this GitHub platform where we share all the notebooks that we have generated for free. And you can be able to go in and do some modifications. And here you can see One of our colleagues is involved, Victoria Nyaga from Katoza. She's one of the developers working in this program and helping different notebooks. And where there's a query, you can always write to us so that we can address that. And the platform is here for us to use, and soon we'll have a learning course on the same so that we leave no one behind. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. I'm not sure if anyone else has a question or comment that they would like to raise to Dr. Mubia. And on the screen, you'll see Ken is showing the introduction to the sandbox course. In fact, there's a link that he's dropped into the chat box, which is learn.digitalearthafrica.org. Go and have a look at all the courses that we have on offer in English and in French. Currently, Ken is showing on the screen the introduction to the sandbox course. So if that's something you believe that can add value either to your research or whatever it is that you're doing, please do log on to learn.digitalearthafrica.org and enroll for one of those courses. This community is a big one outside of just these sessions we have. So much, Ken. It's been an honor hosting this very first session of 2023. Thank you so much for coming through. We host these sessions every week in English and in French. Next week, we will have the very same coastline monitoring, but it's going to be in French and it's going to be facilitated by my colleague, Joseph Tishimero, all the way from Kigali in Rwanda. Until we meet again, leaders, please take care. Reminder to join the WhatsApp community. The link has been dropped into the chat box. If you're not part of the community, we'll see each other again either next week in French or in 2 weeks' time on the 25th of January. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.